Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff from Junior Hockey Advisor. It is Ask Me Anything, and we didn't have a lot of questions come in tonight. We had probably less than 15 questions total, mostly coming in from DM. But as far as from the group, not much tonight, but I still have a ton of topics to talk about. Once again, I'm Jeff Kolcon. I'm a Junior Hockey Advisor. Been doing this for 35 years. I'm a master level coach, and been a junior owner, been a junior coach, been a junior general manager. I've coached at just about every single level, including college. It's great to connect with you. I'm glad you're here tonight. Please, you know the drill if you've been here before. Let me know who you are and where you're from. Say hi. Tell me what city you're listening from. Just so you know, this is worldwide. When we usually do this, we've been getting Finland, Russia, Germany, Sweden, Denmark. We had Iceland on one night. Then, of course, all over. I have to tell you, though, finally, Canada wakes up. I don't know where you've been, but over the last 2 weeks, the amount of people that have joined our Facebook group and our Facebook page has been overwhelming on the Canadian side. So thank you so much for Canada coming in strong. I'm a big advocate of all things hockey in Canada. Both of my kids played junior hockey for at least 1 year. Both of them played for 1 year in Canada. And I honestly believe that it's one of the best kept secrets for most people in there. Thanks for all of you that are coming on. I see Dave in Colorado coming on, Pat in Toronto. See, like what I say right off the bat, Joe in Freeland, great. And then we've got Great Barrie, Ontario. I want to know if oh no, it's just Barrie, Ontario. Barrie is an awesome place. For those of you that don't know, it's a well-known show is filmed up there every summer, and see if you can figure that out. Throw that in the comments if you're not a Canadian. If you're not a Canadian, tell me what shows up in the north part, about an hour and a half, 2 hours north. I think of maybe it's a little bit further north of Toronto, straight up the 401, I believe. So listen, we got a lot to talk about tonight. I want to make sure we stay engaged on some things that were brought up, but I think the biggest thing that people wanted to know about this week, and yes, this is driving me nuts. I'm not sure why, but I'll get used to it. It's a little bit different angle. Every week since we've been doing this, I'm on a new computer tonight. I was doing it with some of the cameras over there. Now we're not. We're using a computer, and I've got an elevated screen. I've got my normal laptop here. So every week we've been trying different products and different ways of actually doing the broadcast with the live stream. Live stream's a little bit different than when I build out the webinars, because the live stream, we were having some sync issues. And unless you want to spend astronomical money, we've just been tweaking it each week to see which way is the best way to go. So I think really I want to jump in with what is the situation going on right now, both with hockey overall, with COVID-19, and a little bit about the 16-18 issue where youth hockey is, and even into I want to start really with the Canadian border issue, because I think that's extremely important. I think it's thanks for Traverse City and Grand Blanc popping on. Know both those areas extremely well. Grand Blanc is probably the last bastion of areas that you can go north before Flint, before the water turns evil on you. I'm just kidding on that. Although I was born in Flint, Michigan, I guess I got a little leeway about making jokes about Flint. But let's talk about the Canadian border issue. You see some online things, you see some doomsdayers out there, you see people that are actually pushing hard, saying, oh, sky's falling, sky's falling, sky's falling. I can't say. Yes, I've had a couple conversations this week. I've had 2 conversations with USHL general managers, still sitting on the fence. They really don't have anything to add to this. I've listened to as much as I can from Hockey Canada, from USA Hockey, trying to figure out if there's any signs, any tells, any tips, anybody tipping their hands on what's going on. I can tell you this. There are a lot of people right now. Remember, the CJHL, 10 leagues that span from coast to coast, that is equivalent to mostly North American on the high end, North American a little bit below the USHL with the BCHL. And then there's a lot of organizations in the AJHL that are very similar to the North American Hockey League. And then you get everything sliding down right into where our top level tier 3 programs in the States are. So the CJHL covers a lot of area, but it also has, roughly 500 players in the CJHL every year between the BCHL, AJ, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, the Superior International Junior Hockey League, the CCHL, the OJHL, the Quebec, and then Maritime. I think I got them all. I just tested myself to see if I'm still up on it. I'm getting all the Canadian leagues in. But if you're a tier 2 level player and you're going to go up to the BCHL, the majority of those players that are in the BCHL, they're one and done players, meaning they finish out prep all the way through. A ton of prep players in the BCHL. In fact, the BCHL and the USHL split the top prep players. Now, there are prep players that leave and graduate from their prep school that are already D1 commits. And there's actually 1 or 2 this year that are actually NHL draft picks. And one's a draft prospect, one's a draft pick. Now, they're going up to the BCHL. They're playing 1 season, then they're jumping right into college. So there's a good chance that people get a little bit concerned about the border, and there's an influx of Americans. I think we're talking 150 just in the BCHL alone. It's over 100. It fluctuates. I don't have top numbers on that. I know last year, but this year it could be a lot less. But let's say that group comes back down. Where do they go? Well, remember, these are D1 commits already. They are players that are going to be going to top teams. So if the border is shut down and players aren't able to go back and forth or can't get in, there's a good chance that they'll end up in the USHL and some into the North American Hockey League. As soon as that happens, then there's a trickle-down effect. What happens if 3 players go and join Sioux Falls? Then Sioux Falls is going to drop 3 players. They're either going to get absorbed into other USHL teams, or they're going to drop into the North American Hockey League. And when they drop into the North American Hockey League, the same thing's going to happen, and it's going to trickle down, making everything stronger. Of course it would. You're adding 150 great players to the top. It's going to make every league stronger. So in one respect, this could be very, very good for hockey on both ends. And for the Canadian teams that lose Americans, that's an opportunity for another Canadian player to step into that role, move up into a junior role in a very good league, if it's the BCHL or it's AJ or it's the Saskatchewan League, wherever you're playing, and actually have a stronger role. Maybe that was a player that was in the stands, now he's in the lineup, and they bring up another kid that's the alternate player that gets a few games here and there. For all those that just came in late, I see a lot of people coming in. Hey, please tell me where you're from. If you got any questions, feel free to ask the questions. I see a couple questions coming in. I'll try to get to them as soon as we're done with this, and then we'll roll into a couple other things too. But remember, we can't really do anything but plan ahead and put a plan in place. So those players from the U.S. going up, and it's the same way with those Canadian players coming down. There's not as many players that come down to play from Canada to play in the United States as we have going north. So you're going to see some of the Canadian players won't come down to the USHL, but that'll make the BCHL stronger. Maybe there's a few of those kids because there's a little bit less of a stigma on the major junior route. Maybe a couple of these kids will choose the major junior route and actually go into the OHL, go into the Western, go into the Quebec League. So, there's not much I can tell you on that, except for if it happens, it could be a really good thing. Now, selfishly, wanting, good play in the United States and wanting to see some of these leagues in the United States, thrive and survive, this could be a really good thing, because if every league gets a little bit of a kickstart and each league gets all these Americans back and they become, astronomically good, because you put that amount of players in the league. Remember, that's 8 full teams of players, 8 full teams of players that you're bringing down. You put those players in, and all of a sudden everything gets better. And I honestly think this could be a windfall for the United States in the long run, because if those Americans come back and we repatriate those players, maybe it puts more emphasis on, our U.S. leagues and gets them a little stronger. And to the detriment of a couple leagues, I don't think you're going to slow down the BCHL. I don't think you're going to slow down the AJHL. There's just too much power on the top of those leagues. There's too much power across the board of the BCHL. All you got to do is count the commitments they've had over the last few years. But, it will have an effect on leagues like the SIJHL, the Superior International Junior League, which is only in the CJHL by name only. That's not a league that produces college players across the board. The trickle-down effect will probably not hit the SIJHL, which is the Superior International Junior Hockey League. So that's what my thoughts are. I really can't answer things. Everybody I've been talking to a lot of U18 coaches this week. That's probably the area that I spent the most time on the phone with. They're not seeing anything yet, but they're planning for the worst. For the first time, they're putting a little bit more effort into contingency planning. I actually talked to one coach in Detroit. I can't name the name, but he told me he's only carrying 17 players because he thinks that the players that he kicked up to juniors that still have 1 year of U18 left may be coming home. Now, see, there's a second part of this that is both a problem that Canada and the U.S. I should say it's not as much as a problem in Canada as it is in the U.S. The way the CJHL is laid out, they're all provincial, meaning they stay in the province, except for the SIJHL. I think everybody else can stay inside their province and play all their games. Now, what's important about that is if they mandate you stay within your state or province, all of a sudden, all the programs up in Canada are good to go because they don't travel outside their province. The issue is if you get some states here that put the 2-week quarantine on, like right now in New York, if you come into New York from certain areas, you have to self-quarantine by law now for 2 weeks. So if a team comes into New York from somewhere else, they've got to quarantine for 2 weeks in the state. And it's a reciprocal thing, meaning if you leave and come back, you've got to quarantine. And there's just some really bizarre laws going on right now. And, that's my wife's world. She's the attorney. I don't do that stuff, but, I know enough about it to say it can really, really put a damper on some of the leagues. Probably the league that comes out smelling like a rose or comes out, intact is the NCDC because they've got such a core built around the Mass area. And if they can keep that core going in the Mass area, maybe a couple teams won't be able to participate or have to start later in the year, but they could probably still get their season going. The North American Hockey League is going to have some issues because the teams are so spread out from state to state, except for probably the best part of the North American Hockey League would be in Texas right now because there's so many teams in Texas. I have heard some talk about some of the programs stagger starting. So one program might start, 2 weeks earlier, or one piece of the league might start 2 weeks earlier and staggering in. I really don't know how that would work. That doesn't make much sense to me, but that is one thing that's coming in. Once again, if you're coming in late, please tell us where you're at listening, maybe ask a question. And everybody, we're growing so fast and this is becoming such a big thing. We're starting to get well over 10,000 people involved with this show every time we do it. I would love it if you invite a friend, share this, let people know about this. Please throw a person's name on there. Tell them to come on over and join us. I think it'd be great. I'd love to see this group keep growing. It's doing a great job. So let's talk about 16s and 18s in the same situation. When you got this COVID thing going on, if you're playing all your games in state, you probably don't have a problem. You probably don't have a problem. It's kind of like a little bit of a double negative without a negative. So I think the issue is the states, the state borders. That's really going to be where everything falls down to. Yes, some of the states might start up a little bit later than others. We get that. But I think there is such a political push right now to open everything up. I think I told you last week or the week before, was out in Des Moines, Iowa for hockey for a week. Des Moines wide open, and everything except for Illinois on the way from New York there was wide open. Didn't see a mask anywhere. Rarely saw a mask. So I'm not seeing the numbers spiking in Iowa. My point though is it's going to be a staggered open, but there might be some modifications. There might be some things happening. Let's take the Tier 1 Elite League. There's so many programs in the Detroit area. You just might see the Tier 1 Elite League allow the Detroit teams to start up and play exhibition or play a showcase of just the Detroit area teams, and maybe they allow the high performance or independent teams coming in too, because you've got 6-8 strong programs at the Tier 1 level just in the Detroit area. Boston could do the same thing. I think we got a real issue with the state borders. I think that's really where this boils down to. Besides that, I think we could possibly get the season up and running from what I'm hearing. Talked to two different league, leaders this last week. Different leagues call their top guy different things, but I'm hearing that they don't think it's going to be much of an issue to get going from September 1st to September 15th at this point. So we'll see. I know that there's a lot of controversy over spike numbers now as far as the amount goes. I don't want to get in the political side of this. This is my haven of talking about anything non-political. I haven't watched a TV news broadcast about anything political in over 3 weeks, and I'm usually a news junkie, but I finally just said no. So I focus all my time just on hockey, and I do this 7 days a week. So anyway, I hope that helped a little bit. I don't like to give unsubstantiated opinions. I don't like to give anything that's not fact-based. I don't like my own opinion unless I've got facts behind it. So that's a little bit difficult to talk about because I don't have enough information to really help you a lot there. So with that said, let's talk about some of the other topics that came in. Here's an interesting one. The jump to juniors. What do you expect when you make that jump to juniors? So you just finished your U18 time, and okay, so the question came in real quick to stay on the last topic, just for a real quick section here. What's going to happen to the U.S. teams that play in the Canadian leagues? And yes, there are a couple of junior teams that are U.S. based that play in the Canadian leagues. The SIJHL has one, or has two now, and then Buffalo has one that plays in the CCHL. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but I know there's at least 3 or 4 teams that play. That's the $1 million question. I've actually heard that there might be some deals put together for those teams to participate if the country borders stay closed, like the OJHL Junior Bruins, that they would be able to participate in a league in the United States as a visiting team for the season or until things open back up. So you might actually, and Buffalo usually carries almost all U.S. players. The SIJHL teams are, because they're up in the Lake Superior area, they tend to, and there's also a NOJO team, the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League team up in Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan. That's also a American team. Those teams are usually mixed, so they probably wouldn't be able to field the team that had to stay in the States. But who knows? Maybe they just fill it all with U.S. players and participate in like leagues until their league opens up. So I have heard that. I've got just heard it as some hockey guys talking about ideas that are being bounced around for, that was specifically about the Buffalo Junior Sabres. So we'll see what happens with that. And if I get any information, I post it. You can anything I get on either juniors that I think is newsworthy or college related that's newsworthy, I'll get it posted as soon as I can for you. So I know that's not a great answer, but hopefully that helped a little bit. Got a lot of people still joining up. Please tell us who you are, where you're from, or at least tell us the city you're in, and invite a friend over to watch the show. So getting back over to the topic of your first time in juniors, and you're packing up the bags and you got to go. First of all, if you can, taking your own vehicle is a great idea. If you can have a vehicle, you are going to find that independence is going to really help. You're away from home. You don't want to be dependent on anybody. And if you've got to wait for a teammate, even if he lives in the same house as you do, if you have to wait for a teammate to go to the store, to go pick up some food, to get a snack, to get to the rink, and they don't sync up the same way you do as far as their schedule goes, it's never a fun situation to either be waiting around all the time or have that person that just doesn't sync up right. So having your own vehicle is huge. I know when my son played out in Alberta, we drove his 2004 Cadillac Jalopy out there all the way out, and we turned it into fitting it in with some of his college visits for some of the schools that were interested in him. It ended up being a fun time. So he had his car out there the whole time. Now, with that said, part of having a car gives you a little bit more room to pack some of the things that are essential. Pack comfort things, make sure it's almost like going to summer camp. This is like packing when you're going to summer camp. Make sure you got a nice pillow that's your own pillow besides the pillow that they're going to provide you. Make sure that you've got a small fan, Okay, make sure that if you can fit a TV in, you got a TV. You're going to want an iPad or a laptop when you go to juniors because you're going to be on the bus. And yes, you can watch some things on your small screen, but holding that screen, it gets really old. You flip down the counter in front of you, you throw your laptop or your iPad on there, and you can watch a little bit better and more stable. And because you're supposed to be taking college courses, you want that laptop so you can knock out that college course when it's your first year up in juniors. That's incredibly important, and you want to make sure you take advantage of that. We're going to do a little bit of a section on that, all about college courses for junior players. We're going to do that in a couple of weeks. That's coming up in our All About series. So I'll make sure that we put that up a little bit further. The other things you want to make sure to do is when you get up and you get into a junior team for the first time, listen, from main camp on, your job is to communicate with the coaches and the staff. Every time you see your coach, you got to be saying hello. Every time you see the assistant coach, you got to be saying hello, even if it's just hello with a smile on your face. First of all, they don't want depressed players. They don't want players to get hung up on issues. They don't want players that show emotion. You can't have a practice where you go over and break your stick against the boards. They don't want that. Okay. They don't want you hanging your head when you make a mistake. I've seen so many good players on great teams that get their career pushed back a little bit or get sit in the stands to learn a lesson about keeping themselves composed and staying positive. Okay. Communication and composure are extremely important for that first year player. You've got to come in with a positive attitude. You've got to come in. You don't have to, you don't have to put on an act, but you do have to communicate. And that's the mature side of this, and making sure you understand that you communicate with that coach. Now, the second part of this is not just the coach, but there's two things that most people don't put a lot of effort into that's going to make your life a lot easier. Hey, thanks for all of the new people coming. We've still got another 10, 12 people that just jumped on. Make sure you tell us where you're from. I'd love to know where you're listening from or watching from. And if you got any questions, go ahead and put them on. I'll try to get to the goalie question in a little bit, but I want to make sure I get to these two things about your first experience in juniors. This is important. Your billet family. Taking the time with your billet family to establish a couple of things. One, be on time when you're with your billet family and respect the pattern of the billet family. If the billet family eats dinner at 7:00 all the time, usually junior programs, you're practicing somewhere between 11 and 2. You might have a few things afterwards. You're out the door at 3, maybe 4:00. You're always on time for dinner, and it's designed that way. You should be able to get there. Now, some tier 3 programs, because of where they're at in proximity, they might practice in the evening, but that's a different story. Yeah, that's not the norm. The norm is you're going to get your practices done on the day when the ice is cheaper. So make sure you respect what they're doing. If the pattern is at 7:00, get there at 6:50. Don't be late for dinner. Don't be late for any family events they expect you at. Respect that pattern. They should never have to wait for you as a billet to show up for dinner. That's very disrespectful. Disrespectful. The other thing is be compatible. Okay. And what compatible means is look at the house when you first move in and get a snapshot. Maybe even take your camera and take a picture of a few things and how it's all laid out, and make sure that it stays that way when you're there. Okay. Just like when you go camping, you're always told to make the campsite cleaner than when you got there. The same thing should be with a billet family. Remember, they're letting you into their home. You've got to take the time to respect that. Be as compatible to their system as you possibly can. It doesn't mean being a hermit. It doesn't mean locking yourself in your room all the time. That's another really, really bad thing to do as a billet. If you come in and march right in your room and then play your video games, your Call of Duty or whatever you're playing till 2 or 3 o'clock at night, and you don't interact, that's not going to help you. Build that relationship. The reason is because the billet families have communication with the coach. Coach wants to know how you're doing. If they say, hey, look, we don't talk to him, he just comes in a room and hides all the time, that's not what the coach wants to hear. What the coach wants to hear is, hey, he's great. He comes in for dinner. We have great conversations. He tells us what's going on. If he's got a problem, he lets us know. And if he's got an issue, he lets us know. And same thing, if we've got an issue with him, he listens and then corrects it. That's the way you want to be in these relationships. And the last one is very obvious, but no matter what in the hockey world, when you go into a junior program, respect the program, respect the team, respect the billets, respect everything else. Because as soon as you start disrespecting it, you're traded. As soon as you disrespect it, you're in the stands. As soon as you disrespect it, you're just released and you're on your own. You're done. You're told, hey, we no longer want you. You have to respect things. You might not agree with that coach. You could be in the best league. You can be in the USHL and have a coach that absolutely is against everything you ever believed. But you can learn from bad coaches just like you can learn from good coaches. A bad coach could be the best thing that happens to you in your first year of juniors. It could be good at any point because then you see all the things that are wrong. That way, when you get to the next team the next year, then you've got everything to build off of it that went wrong with the last program. Never, never, never let anybody tell you that a bad coach can't be good for you. A bad coach will give you the adversity, especially as a first-year player, to get through some things, work through some things, and then become better as you get into a better program. I don't see anything wrong with having a bad coach once in a while, just to spark things up and to actually help you mature a little bit and work through the adversity. So thank you, Philly. The question I'll get to, if I can in a little bit, that'll be a little bit later. But I see that coming in. Thanks so much for the South Philly question. So I hope that helped a little bit about juniors and some of the things to think about. I really do believe that the last thing, and this is the trick, if you're a junior player, and this goes for any junior player, I will stop playing with this. I promise you. I'll get this thing fixed now that we put it the way we've got it. Any junior player can have a much better time in juniors if they find that local self-proprietor restaurant in the area that they become friends with. And what do I mean by that? I mean, actually find that restaurant that you can walk in the door like Norm on Cheers, where they say, hey, how you doing? And you go sit in the same table, the same waitress. Maybe you go out to breakfast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Maybe on game days you go out for lunch somewhere. You find that restaurant that gives you something away from the house, and it gives you the ability to actually talk to somebody a little bit, have your space away from the team. Now, you might do it with a teammate. You might do it alone. But it is essential to have that relationship with one place. Maybe it's just bacon and eggs every Tuesday and Thursday. But it gives you the ability to walk in where they know who you are, you build a relationship. And I know that with my kids, especially with my youngest, it became the point where he could literally walk in, walk over the refrigerator, get his own drink out, go sit at the table. They knew what he wanted, and they loved it. And he had a blast with it. And it added some security, it added some confidence, and it gave him a chance to actually have a place. It's kind of like an adult with a bar where you go talk and tell all your problems to the bartender. Well, you find that small little restaurant that's got an owner and a waitress that are always there all the time. Sometimes when things aren't going so well, they can hear the story out a little bit and it helps. So I would strongly recommend you find that little place in whatever town you're in. Every town has that little restaurant. It could be a dine or dive. It could be any kind of place, but I'd stay away from the chains. Not something that's got a high rotation of a wait staff. You want that place that's got the same lady coming in every single morning. So that's all I got on the first year junior players coming in the door. Hey, I saw something this week I thought I'd share with you, especially, you probably heard me talking about our industry professional class. We have a webinar right now that's going on. It's called Industry Professionals. It's called Chaos to Commitment, chaos of youth hockey to getting your Division I commitment for professionals, for industry professionals. We've got several people in the class right now. We've got a new class that's opening up in July. Got a few more people that are signed up for it then. This is the class that helps you jumpstart going into this as a profession, from being an advisor to a scout to a recruiter to working for some of these companies like TPH that are all in one, all inclusive now with the skill development and the school and everything, or being an assistant coach, moving into the coaching realms, or the assistant general manager, video editor, whatever job you're looking at. And what was great about this, write this name down if this interests you. Ryan Hardy is the general manager from the Chicago Steel in the USHL. Ryan was a rookie general manager that won Coach of the Year. Ryan is a young, aggressive, no bars held, speaks his mind. Everything's black and white, and he's funny. He's a good guy. But what he did was he put a podcast together with where's my sheet at when I need it? But he had 4 or 5 different people, maybe 6 people. And what was interesting about it was the backgrounds. And I think this was interesting across the board. None of these were big NHL stars, but they all had NHL careers, or, with the exception of they had one Division I coach and they had one USHL general manager. Now, they all started in many different ways. One guy was a reporter. He was writing sports articles, and now he's a GM. He's a director of hockey. He's a director of hockey for the Minnesota Wild in the NHL. Another guy was a D3 player. Now he's an assistant GM for an NHL team. One guy started out as a video coach, never played, and now has worked his way up through, and he's coaching at Vermont right now, but he had a stop in the NHL. The reason I brought this all up, one is a female, a woman that was a U16 coach that was spotted by Ryan Hardy. Ryan Hardy turned around to a different job, and then she's now an amateur scout for the NHL, working for Toronto. So the reason I bring this all up is if you think you have to have this elaborate resume, a D1 NHL playing in Europe to be in the hockey industry, that's not the case. That's not the case. My background brought me up through the Marine Corps hockey program, which was a fantastic experience. I had a very short run at the University of Michigan. I wasn't a star there. I had a very short run with some senior A hockey and some minor pro hockey after that. Very short run. And then, I got into the coaching side. You do not have to have this elaborate resume to be a coach, a GM, a scout. There's different ways to get in the door. So that video is Ryan Hardy's got it. If you can't find it on YouTube, I just stumbled across it on YouTube. Please reach out to me through DM. I'll see what I can do to find that. But it was Ryan Hardy and a crew of about 6 other people, and they all told their backgrounds and talked about how they got into hockey on the coaching side, and none of them took the same path, and none of them were superstars. They all came up through D3 hockey. A couple of them, I played in high school a little bit. That's it, but they drove through and found a way to make it to the next level. So I thought that was interesting. I thought you'd like to hear that. Let me see if I can work this question in. I know that South Philly had a question about younger players. I have a question about development. I have a 12U minor player, played double A last year in Ohio. Now we have moved to the East Coast. Since COVID is here, he did not get to have tryouts. Okay, so this is something we've heard a lot about, and the coaches have not seen him play. Does value increase at 14U when check-in begins? So there's a lot of questions. You asked a lot of questions there. I think the best thing to do is I'll give a brief scenario of this. There's a ton of people right now, that have not had an opportunity to try out. They switched organizations, and then everything hit in the middle of a switching of an organization. They did not get called back because they were transitioning from teams. They moved to a different area. There's a lot of issues with that whole scenario. I would say this, DM me on that question, but you have to be an advocate right now. You have to be on the phone. Even if you don't think the coaching situation, I'd reach out to the travel director of every organization I could if I did not have a team and did not have a home right now. And I would be saying, hey, look, what do you know? What can you do to help me? Do you have an opportunity for my son? If the answer is no, and the answer is they don't, then the next question out of your mouth is, who do you know? Because in hockey, the world is small, and usually 9 out of 10 times that travel director or that coach will help you. They'll give you a name. They'll give you a direction. They'll tell you what they think that you should do. Now, you're not always going to agree with the answer. Sometimes they'll say, frankly, we don't think you're good enough, and you've got to deal with that. But our sport's different. Our sport will reach out and help people from time to time consistently, and take advantage of that. So I know there's a lot that you packed a lot into that. I'm going to leave that alone for another time, but DM me on that, and we'll break that down a little bit in a one-on-one. So want to give you things that are coming up right now. We're going to keep doing the Sunday series. You see me popping on randomly and doing individual topics and running through. Some of the topics have just exploded. We just did one. Excuse me on that. Sorry. We just did a topic yesterday on breaking down the junior hockey Tier 3 franchise and looking at income and expenses and looking at the operational staff. It was an awesome turnout. I got a great feedback on that, a lot of DMs on that, and got a lot of feedback from junior general managers and junior owners on that also liked and appreciated that we took a little bit of the stigma away from some of the unknowns. So take a look at that if you want. And just in a recent history of this, remember, we've only been up and doing this for about 2 months now, just over 2 months. We broke down the North American Hockey League versus the NCDC. We told you how to do main camps. We went through the 8 USPHL commits last week, and we basically I'm very, very upset with the way the USPHL did that. None of those commitments were only 10 of the 40 commitments were theirs. But that's why you have to watch these videos and learn about this. So they had a list of D1 commitments on their website. They had 40 some odd kids on there. 10 of them came through their program. Go watch that video. It's up. It's still up on our page, our Facebook page. I think you'll find out some good information there. But the reason I'm getting around to this is somebody emailed me and said, where do I start? Where do I start? We're just getting involved, and we're at U14, and we don't know where the best place to start is. So the best place to start on all this is grab information. The first place to go is go to the website, Junior Hockey Advisor. Go through the blogs. We've got great content on there. You can start off with learning how the USA Hockey works. You can find out how the ADM works. You can go through all kinds of information just on catching up and finding out what's going on. Then move into our Facebook page and move into the discussion group. The discussion group has extremely good topics. There's good topics popping up on the discussion group all the time, and there's timely information. The other thing, too, is go back and read some of the old posts, watch some of the old live streams. You're going to find that a lot of information there. There's a free downloadable. It's a very good downloadable on the 3 things junior programs can't seem to find a way to do right, or I can't remember the exact title on it, but it talks about the 3 things that they usually tell you in recruiting they're going to do that usually don't happen. So that's a great downloadable. Yes, you got to give up an email to get it, but that's the price you pay. And there's paid webinars. And that's what I wanted to mention to you right now. We've got a bundle coming out. A lot of people, there's been a lot of push and demand to get information on how to hire an advisor. So we've got a bundled package coming up. If you're interested in that, all you have to do is go to the website, juniorhockeyadvisor.com. Get the first downloadable. It will give you information. You'll get on the list. You'll get all the information as far as what that's all about. But these are very concise. They're packages for a specific direction. How to build your goals before you get to an advisor, so you know exactly what you're looking for when you get an advisor. But then if you hire an advisor, the who, what, when, where, and why you hire an advisor, and all the questions you should have, and great downloadables, including a checklist of questions you need to ask when you hire that advisor. Remember, I'm not an advisor. I don't plan on being an advisor. I only try to help you before you go down that road. The reason, and here's the big one. I know this is a little bit of a soapbox. You've heard me say this before. 2 things with a bad advisor. You lose time. You could lose 1 year. You could lose 2 years. You could lose a lot of time if an advisor steers you in the wrong direction. The other one is money. Money on 2 fronts. You're spending money on that advisor, and if they put you in the wrong spot, you're spending money on something you didn't want. So you want to make sure you get the 2 things taken care of. Your goals and the right advisor, so you don't waste time and you don't waste money. So when you're looking at this, I highly recommend you go to the website and grab that information. And if it works out that you want the webinar, all the information will come to you on that too. So I hope that helped. A couple other things that are coming through right now. Let's see. That's a little bit long to get to. All right, a couple DMs coming in too, but I'm going to get back to my list of questions that I had that came in earlier. I guess the next one I would put on there is, here's a great one that came in. My son needs references from his coaches. How does he go about getting references from his old coaches, and how far back do you go? Okay, you're going into juniors, you're a U16 player, and you want to start putting emails out. You want to start putting emails out at U16, U17, or U18 to colleges too. And a lot of times, even on the college, when you go to a college website, they'll want you to fill out a prospective players section. They might ask you for a reference. They might ask you for information on people that will vouch for you. So if you're looking for a reference that's free form, it's a matter of the player, not the parent, the player either texting, because texting is acceptable now. I don't believe in it. I think a phone call or a direct conversation face-to-face is better, but hey, I get it. It's a different society, different world now. The player gets a hold of his old coach. Now, how far back do you go? You're a U16 player. You're looking to get a U14, U15 coaches, no further back than that, 1 or 2 seasons back. If you're a U18 player, you're looking at getting your U15, your U16, and your U18 coach. If you've got a coach that is, for example, you've got a coach that is from a showcase team that's a reputable coach that is well connected, yes, you want to use them. And examples would be like if you're playing for one of the elite programs, and right off the bat, because he's been active on our site lately, Rock City Elite, you got Matt Dibble. Matt Dibble's connected with a ton of D1, D3 coaches and a lot of junior programs. He's got really top-end teams. So if you put him on the resume, there's no problem with that. People will recognize the name. They'll probably give him a call or a text or an email and find out a little bit about you. So you ask. The bottom line is you ask. What you don't want to do is you don't want to put I personally would not be putting my power skating instructor on there. Sometimes a skill instructor is fine. I wouldn't be putting on my strength and conditioning coach unless that's what you have. You really want to have people that are. But if your power skating coach and your skills coach and your strength and conditioning guys are connected to junior teams and they're connected to colleges, absolutely put them on there. Absolutely use them. But if they're not in the industry, like not a power skating instructor, but if you've got a performance training guy that's really good and he's doing a great job with you, but he's isolated from the world of hockey as far as junior connections and college connections, really that doesn't help you to put him on the reference sheet. And the reason why is, remember, this is that Kevin Bacon game. I can't remember how many degrees, but in hockey, it's usually you're only 1 or 2 degrees away from everybody in hockey. A little bit easier than the Kevin Bacon game, but you're only 1 or 2 degrees away. So if you got somebody that's connected to the game and they're going to vouch for you, usually that when they write a reference letter for you, or if they write an email or a text for you, they're saying, "Hey, I'm so and so, and I know so and so that you and I both played with, or we both played for the same coach in this place," or there's usually some kind of connection that you're trying to drive. So my answer to that is you ask for it. And also, if you have to write a reference, sit down with your son, help him write the reference, because a lot of coaches will say, "Hey, look, write the reference for me, email me what you want me to say, and I'll send it in to you." That happens a lot for the service academies. That happens a lot for some of the institutions on the East Coast. Some of the smaller, higher end schools want written references. So you help the coach out. The coach doesn't want to write it out. He doesn't know exactly, what the school's looking for. So you sit down with your son, you pound it out the right way, and then you actually get it turned in. So that's my thoughts on that. As far as the references go, it's not a hard process at all. I'm just checking to see some people are coming in on DMs right now. So reference is easy, not much to worry about there. I think we covered everything I wanted to, cover tonight. Unless there's a question that comes in a little bit. I thank everybody for coming in tonight. I appreciate everybody and your time. I know that I've amped these up a little bit, trying to get more broadcasts out, but there's so much information I want to get out to you about the junior process, about moving up from 12s to 14s, from 14s to 16s, and then moving through. And we're in a certain unique time. We're not going to experience this kind of time. And as a business owner, I also know that you got to go out and fish when the fish are running. And right now, because of the pandemic, more of you are watching, so I can capture a better audience than I normally would. So I'm no dummy. I'm actually trying to grow my audience because of the pandemic. So a little bit of lemonade from the lemons here. Hey, listen, thanks so much. Thanks for joining the group. Please invite a friend. please let me know how I'm doing. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. I love comments. I try to get back to everybody that comments if I can. And but the group's growing so much. Do you know we've got right now between the groups and the Facebook page, the 2 Facebook pages, the group and my hockey friends on there, we're now pushing 11,000 people in 2 months. That's astronomical. That's grown. Now, I did reach out to a lot of people to grow this group, but I'm rarely reaching out now. I might, if you're in one group, I might invite you over to the other group. But this is all now taking its own life, and the videos are popping up all over the place. I love it, and I need content though. I've got a lot of things to talk about, but if you have things, I need to know what you want to hear about. So make sure you tell me what you like. Make sure if there's a topic we didn't get a lot into, tell me what you want to hear more of. Tell me what you don't like. That's just as good too, because if I waste a lot of time, as a blowhard and it wasn't effective, let me know that too, and I'll try to model off the positives and learn from the negatives. So thank you so much. Have a great night, and I appreciate you all tuning in.